Welcome to the channel, my pack cracking family. Clever Magic Trevor here, doing a slightly different video. What are we doing today?
The most impactful cards in standard meta
Right now. That is right. The most impactful cards in standard right now. Most of this data and what I collected and what I decided on, this is an opinion piece, is based on Arena, because that's where we can pull data from, and also tournaments, but these are the most impactful cards in the current standard meta, and let us begin. Okay, let's get into it. But before that, let's do some just a few honorable mentions. I just want to do a few that didn't make it in the top 10. Some, and all of them are, pretty surprising. Number one, Shark Typhoon. I mean, this can make or break your deck. I could go into the advantages of Shark Typhoon, but you guys probably already know them. Embercleave. I can't believe Embercleave didn't make it. Now, Embercleave can basically change a game. Once Embercleave comes out, if you haven't addressed it already, you better address it now. Whether that's take away the creature or the artifact, but you gotta address that equipment. Next is Scavenging Ooze. Yeah, you know what? He's gonna eat up your graveyard. Not only does it help with that, like eating up some of the graveyard when there's so many decks that play out of the graveyard, is the fact that it's gonna get bigger and bigger. You don't address it, it's gonna eat you up alive. Okay, and there's so many ways to get it to make sure it gets bigger and bigger, and it's in so many decks. It's in 39% of the decks, whereas Shark Typhoon's in 25%, Embercleave's in 30%, and our last one, Questing Beast, 30%. Now, Questing Beast is a stud. Questing Beast is super good, and I just didn't find a place in it with the way it's played in my top 10. But those are honorable mentions for sure. You know what? Let's get into it. Number one, Brushfire Elemental. I know, how is Brushfire Elemental even in this? It's an uncommon. It takes a red and a green. Brushfire Elemental can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. It has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, Brushfire Elemental gets +2/+2 until end of turn. That is mean. You throw down a Fatal Passage with that, and this came out on turn 2, and all of a sudden it's being bumped up to a 5/5, and I mean, maybe you were first play rather than first draw, it's gonna hit you for a lot right away. This is a mean card, and I'm surprised more people don't talk about it. Primarily, you're gonna find it in Gruul Adventures. Although you will find it in some Jund decks and some Gruul aggro and whatnot, but other than that, yeah, this card super mean. Next on the list, I had to go with at least one Planeswalker in the top 10. I just had to, and so Vivian made the cut. I thought about Ugin, but honestly, Ugin's easy to take care of right now, and people kind of expect when he's coming out and when he's coming to play. It's hard to get a drop. With Vivian, let's read her. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library. +1, create a 3/3 green beast creature token. Put your choice of vigilance counters, a reach counter, or a trample counter on it. -2, when you cast your next creature spell this turn, search your library for a creature card with less converted mana cost, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. How handy is that? I mean, but really, it's not even the -2 or the +1. The ability to play off your deck, especially when you're a creature deck, and it's astronomically large. I mean, that's an awesome, and then you get to make creatures. I mean, she kicks butt right now as far as Planewalkers. Although Planeswalkers aren't, they're not as powerful right now. I feel like there's too many ways to deal with them. You'll find her in 39% of the deck, where Brushfire is only in 25% because you're pretty much Gruul at that point. But Vivian, you're going to find in Gruul Adventures typically along with a brush fire, and mono green. Mono green, I mean, you can have some Tamira ramp and whatnot like that, but primarily you're looking at Gruel and mono green. She is fantastic. The next one on the list is Love Struck Beast. Now, I actually had him higher before. I bumped him down because there's so many other cards that are so impactful in this meta right now. I feel like you get a 5/5 potentially on turn 3, possibly earlier depending how you're playing, possibly a little bit later down the road if you have an innkeeper or whatever, or early on if you have an innkeeper. Not only are you drawing cards, I mean, you get a 1/1 and a 5/5 on turn 3. It's pretty unbelievable. Love Struck Beast is he's a big boy, and he's primarily found in Gruel Adventures and mono green. But you'll find him in Timur still, Timur Adventures and Timur Ramp, and some Golgari stuff. So he's kind of all over the place because he's in 38% of the decks right now. 38% of the decks. So very impactful card. I do think that Adventure is going to be reprinted down the line, and we'll be seeing him more in other formats. So that's just my 2 cents. Next on the list is Heartless Act. I had to pick a black card. I didn't actually have that many super impactful black cards on here, even though it's pretty much a Swiss Army knife at this point. You can mix black with anything and have a good deck. And so the accessory cards in black are just unbelievable. Now, I did have Extinction Event on here, and then I went to Heartless Act. Now, Heartless Act is choose one, destroy target creature with no counters on it, or remove up to 3 counters from target creature. It only takes 2 so to play. So and it's an instant, not a sorcery, so you can play it anytime. You kind of wait till till your opponent's turn, and then play it at that time. So I just felt like Heartless Act overall was easier to use than Extinction Event, which you're kind of waiting for multiples to really make it super impactful, even though it does exile versus this just destroying. You're gonna find this a lot in Dimir Rogues, Dimir Control, some of the Esper decks, some of the Soul Tie decks, but Dimir Control and like a Soul Tie Ramp and Dimir Rogues, I mean, you're probably going to find this in just about every single deck. So Heartless Act is very impactful in my opinion and deserves that spot. Next, number 6, Mystical Dispute. Mystical Dispute. I felt like you almost needed some sort of counter in the top 10. They are so impactful to the meta, not just this meta, but all metas. And I felt like this one was the most usable one. It's in 37% of the deck, so you're gonna find it in a lot of Esper and Dimir Control, Tamira Ramp, Dimir Rogues, stuff like that, along with many other decks. It's a kind of a utility type of card. The spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a blue spell. There's a lot of big blue spells. And if blue's splashed in with a lot of decks, so if you're if you're expecting something right away and you can get it off on one, it's pretty powerful. Now, the counter target spell, unless its controller pays 3, does limit the card, but not that much, because some of the times that I'm playing this, if it's late in the game and they have plenty of mana, I'm just like, look, I'm just looking for you to burn up all your mana, because I know if you have 6 left, this is coming, and I don't want this to come. So I want you to burn up all your mana for this turn. So I'll play the Mystical Dispute sometimes just to have them use up their mana, or if they're smart, sometimes they'll just diffuse that, which I would prefer almost. Sometimes they use up their mana, but we'll get rid of that card and they can play something else. Highly used card. I love Mystical Dispute, and it's definitely deserving in probably a top 5, but it's like, where do you place these? And this is an opinion piece, because next on the list is another removal. It's a Scorching Dragon, and Scorching Dragon is one of those cards that it only takes 2 to play. It only takes 2 to play, and it's an exile card. So with everybody playing from out of the graveyard, exile it's used, quite a bit. So let's read this. Scorching Dragonfire deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. So, you can, if somebody plays a Love Struck Beast and, it takes 3 to play it down, and you want to just get rid of the beast rather than get rid of the 1/1 token, because maybe you're worried about it blocking still and whatnot, you hit it with a shock, you hit it with a Scorching Dragonfire that's down 5, and it's dead. And not only that, it's exiled if you did it in the right order. You're going to find Scorching Dragonfire huge in Gruul Adventure decks. Gruul Adventure decks are probably the #1 place you find them now. Temur Ramp, Mono Red obviously are huge for it too, but with Mono Red, unless you're playing Big Red, you're typically going for those smaller cards like a Shock, where it's only 1 mana play, even though this is only 2. When you don't have any ramp, if you're like a Mono Red, you want the less, you'll take the less. And with a lot of things having strength less than 2, I mean their life less than 2 or whatever, then you know, it's easy to get something off the battlefield. I think this is a super impactful card. It's deserving of the top 5. Let me know what you think. This next one, we're going to go down to #4. Yes, Klothys of Destiny. Now, Klothys of Destiny is probably played the least besides Brush Fire Elementals in my top 10. It's only in 28% of the decks, but it goes back to its 2-colored, you know, and you're dependent on those colors. And so it's indestructible as long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7. Klothys isn't a creature. That's almost beneficial sometimes. I almost prefer him not being a creature, because then, you know, you're still subject to getting exiled and stuff like that. Whereas sitting down there being an indestructible enchantment is like okay, because what it does is at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, exile target card from a graveyard. You can pick a graveyard and you can do a card. If it's a land card, you get mana. You get the ability to play more cards if you're hurting for mana or something, which Gruul, it's hit or miss sometimes if you're gonna lose because of mana. Otherwise, if it's not a mana, if it's not a land that you're eating up, that you're exiling, you gain 2 life, and Klothys deals 2 damage to the opponent. So honestly, if they're a creature heavy deck, you know, or they're milling you to death and you have a ton of creatures available and you can just eat your own graveyard if you want, honestly, it's unbelievable. And that 2 damage and 2 life is very helpful, as long as they're not a mill, you know. But still, you can play. I mean, this card is just so unbelievably tough. And I think Theros kind of got a bad name for a little bit. And when Earl got banned, it was like, what do we have? We got Klothys. We got Klothys. And that is a fantastic card. You're gonna find it in the Gruul Adventures, like I said. Temur Ramp, Gruul Aggro, basically any Gruul and Temur, you can kind of throw them in there. So I'm drawing a blank on that one deck that's really popular, but let's move on, because I didn't just sit here to think. Let's move on to #3, Fabled Passage. Honestly, this one should be higher. It's in 73% of the decks. 73% of the decks in the current meta use this, and it needed to be reprinted. So I think, what was it, in Throne of Eldraine when it first came out? So you got 2 sets that you can actually play, or at least be able to get these lands from, which is kind of nice when you're, you know, you're buying a booster box or something. You're like, well, Fabled Passage is in there. So it's in 73% of the decks, and with the landfall that just hit with Zendikar Rising, it's super impactful, even more so than it was before, when it was already a super nice fetch land. I mean, you tap it, sacrifice Fabled Passage, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. If you control 4 or more lands, untap that land. So that land comes in untapped. It's you're able to play it with more than 4. Fabled Passage, by far, I mean, you're gonna find it in so many decks that it's unbelievable. Obviously, none of the monos. You gotta have dual or tricolors to really have it even be useful. If you're gonna have a mono, you're strictly using it for a landfall. But it just doesn't make sense. But 73% of the decks, that means that probably 73% of the decks are not mono color. Moving up to #2, we have the Great Henge, and I can't believe this card didn't make #1. And honestly, it was my #1 deck. It's a card in a deck. It's in 37% of the meta. Currently 37% of the decks in the meta right now, and this card is unbelievable. The spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So, you know, if you can get a Lovestruck Beast out right away, you're going to get a Great Henge possibly turn 4. It's stupid. It's stupid. That Lovestruck Beast is the other reason that it made it to that over the Innkeeper, because it helps with this getting the Great Henge down. Once you got the Great Henge down, unless your opponent has a way to deal with it, it slides out. So you tap it, you add 2 green mana. That's stupid. You gain 2 life also at the same time. You have 2 mana and 2 life for tapping it. Yeah, it has a lot to put down, but you got a beast, so you can lay it down on turn 4. Whenever a non-toker creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. Are you serious? You get 2 mana, 2 life. You get to draw an extra card and put a +1/+1 on a creature that just landed. What is this stupid stuff? This card is so impactful. It's unbelievable. It's going to change the game, and once somebody gets it down, your opponent has to deal with it right away. It has to deal with it because it's going to get out of control, and the amount of cards that you can draw from just playing creatures and whatnot. And when you're playing like a Gruul deck or something, where you get a lot of small creatures and whatnot, depending, I guess, what type of Gruul you're playing, but I mean, you need the big creature to lay it down, which is where the Lovestruck Beast comes in. But then if you got small creatures coming down after that, it's stupid. It's stupid. It makes that Brushfire Elemental just ridiculous as well. You're gonna find it in Gruul Adventures, Mono Green, Timur Ramp, Golgari Adventures, and Mono Green Food and Stompy. And you know, it's just, I expected this to be number 1, and I had to choose another card as number 1 because the next card is in 47% of the decks, the most out of any card currently, besides lands and whatnot, but as far as like creatures, enchantments, artifacts. Bone Crusher Giant. Bone Crusher Giant is number 1 for impactful cards in the current standard meta. So shoot, first of all, it's a shock. Only it takes 2, you know, 2 mana to hit, 3 mana to lay down. Whenever Bone Crusher Giant becomes a target of a spell, Bone Crusher Giant deals 3 damage to that spell's controller. So basically, if you want to shock them and then you lay him down, if you can get an attack and get an attack, but no matter what, you know, I mean, he's going to do an extra 2 damage to that person, and if you keep getting him, you just he's tough to deal with, and you got to deal with him right away. Not to mention, you know, you get a Embercleave on him or something like that, then he's not only really, really tough hitting, but he's extremely hard to deal with, and no matter what, you're going to get some damage just from trying to, if you use a removal on him. So he's just crazy. He's crazy. Like I said, 47% of decks, you're going to primarily find him in Gruul Adventures and Rakdos, like the mid-range Rakdos, Timur Ramp, Mono Red, Gruul, Aggro, Timur Adventures. I don't know if I said that already. But he's in so many decks, and he's so powerful because he's dual purpose. You know, I'm saying this utility knife, that he definitely came in as number 1. I had the Great Henge as number 1, but he is kind of running the meta as far as impact. I mean, he's very tough to deal with, and you got to deal with him right away. So that is and the big reason he's number 1 is 47%, and there wasn't a whole lot of cards closer than that. Most of them were in the 30s and less. So when you run that much, and that's why Fabled Passage landed. I mean, Fabled Passage honestly should be number 1. I just I moved Fabled Passage back because it's more indirectly, you know, it has to do with what other cards do you have in there. It's a fetch land regardless. But if you get him on turn 2 or 3, or if he messes up your turn 1, as far as not getting the ability to play something, you know, that's why Fatal Pass got moved down, and Bone Crusher got moved up. So you can argue with me. I'd love to hear what you guys think, but Bone Crusher Giant, number 1. And those are my most impactful top 10 with some honorable mention cards of standard meta right now. I'd like to hear what you guys have to think and say about it. At least give me your maybe top one, maybe top two cards that you think are impactful in the current meta. And you guys know what else? Please subscribe, like the videos, make sure you lay down a comment. That way I can possibly give you a card on Fireside. And we will pay it forward. We will catch you on the next video.